Hello and welcome to our program, Where God Weeps, a program where we speak about the situation of the suffering church around the world. Papua New Guinea is a young country, only 250 years old, with a population of a little more than 7 million, caught between modernity and traditional ways. The Catholic Church, a missionary church, is growing, with 1 out of every 3 Papuans Catholic. To tell us more, it is my very great privilege to welcome to our program Father Roger Purcell, whose work also includes Community Animation Services, a Catholic renewal program for Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. Father Roger, thank you for being with us here today on our program.
Mark, thank you. It's my pleasure and my really great privilege to be here with you.
Father, you have been over 38 years in Papua New Guinea as a missionary. I want to go back and ask you, when was it that you first wanted to be a missionary? When was it that you first knew you wanted to do this life?
I suppose as a young boy in school and even in grade 6, I wanted to be a priest. And then in high school, I received some information about the missionaries of the Sacred Heart, and that's where the missionary part was added to what I thought God was wanting of me.
Was there somebody who was an inspiration for you? Was somebody who gave you an example, say, yes, I want to be like this person?
Yes, it was the diocesan priests from the diocese where I came from, and the priests who were in the parish. Even one was an old Irish missionary, and in his own ways was a great inspiration. And some of the younger priests who were curates of the parish, who were, really alive, really committed, and really faithful to what they were doing. So they were a great inspiration to me.
You always had a sense you wanted to get out to the missions. You always wanted to go abroad.
I think from the time of high school, when I received that materials, just promotion materials from the missionaries of the Sacred Heart, and just the word missionary probably inspired me, and I thought, yes, that's what I want to do.
Have you ever been disappointed in your decision?
No, not overall. There's always many ups and downs, and many times you think you'd like to run away from it all, but no, overall it's been a great life and a great challenge and a great apostolate.
You've been 38 years in Papua New Guinea. What would you say you've learned the most from the Papuans?
I suppose living and working in another culture has been a great learning experience. It's often difficult for an expatriate in another culture to really learn and appreciate. And in that, I think the people have taught me many things. For the Papuans, their culture is very much a communitarian culture, so relationships are very important. So that's been a great learning experience too, is how you relate to people, how you treat people, and how you accept people, and how you work with people. Some of those have been really when I was up in the rural areas, people from the villages, many still illiterate, but you learn to appreciate them as people and for their wisdom and their experience of life.
And how would they look to you? What would they see? They see this foreign man, this white man coming from abroad, trying to live as they live and integrate with them. How do they look to you?
I suppose often expatriates, they can put you on a pedestal, think you know everything, and so have sort of a high opinion of you. But they're very reserved too. They realise this man is not part of our culture, not one of us. But again, in a bush parish, as it went along, and I really lived with the people and ate their food and learned the language, and they really appreciate that, the fact that I would walk for hours to go to a village to be with them and do what we have to do there. And they really appreciated the fact that you would make the effort and, as I say, eat their food and generally
be a part of their life.
See as much as you can do as an outsider.
Yeah.
And they really appreciate that, and that helps enormously as time goes on. And then as time goes on, you meet other Papua New Guineans, and they know immediately that I've been around a long time.
How's that?
I don't know how they do it, but
They know.
They can sort of say, this guy he's been here for a long time. He's sort of part of one of us.
He's part of us.
Yeah.
Are they receptive to the Word of God? Are they open to the Word of God? When you come and preach in the bush, in the missions, often perhaps for the first time they're hearing about the gospel, perhaps. Are they open to it and do they take it on?
For sure. They're very open to it. They want to know about it. They want to understand it. I think probably I've not been in a situation where I was the first evangelizer. Others had been there before me. But often I led people through to reception into the church in baptism and trained a lot of people as ministers in the church. Yes, they really do want to accept it, but then they want to see how it fits within their culture and how they can live it out in their own culture.
The Papuan culture is very much based on traditional ways, traditional religions. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the characteristics of these traditional ways and traditional religions?
It's a very communitarian culture, and the values are communitarian. Where I suppose a lot of the Western world, it's more individualistic.
Well, let's
in the good sense of the individual is important.
Let me get into the understanding, just to understand what do you mean by communitarian?
They work together, they share together, they have feasts together, and it's important that everybody helps, and that we call reciprocal obligation, so that if I help you with something now, then you have to help me afterwards, and you have to contribute to my feast as I contributed. And a lot of that's got to do with relationships, of how we relate to one another, that obligation to particularly relatives, and even in some parts too, the strangers are often welcomed, onto the chief's platform, and so it's respect, and in their coming to decision making is very much a dialogue. They discuss. Everybody is heard. It's important that everybody is able to say what they want to say. So in that sense, it's not like a lot of our meetings. We hurry up because we have a schedule and we have an agenda. So it can go very long, but if everybody is heard, even for the decision, say if I've spoken and the decision goes against me, but I've been heard, so that's important. And then they come to a consensus on it.
Ancestors, elders, very much respected. Is that still the case today, or is this starting to break down, this traditional culture, these traditional ways?
Starting to break down, and that's a concern for everybody. Young people are quite different now, especially the ones in the towns. Young people get educated, many of them move away. Many of them for that education have to go away to boarding schools, so they're not actually in the village where they're learning the village ways, and they're learning the traditional, the modern ways of music and career, money, many of those things. So it is breaking down. It
must be a great stress for the young people, because on one side they're being faced with new technology, mobile phones, all that brings the internet, globalization, and yet on the other side the expectations of the village on them haven't changed.
That's right, and there's still that mutual obligation towards others, and particularly younger people, when they move into town, they have a career, they're married, they have their own family, but they're not based in the village, and they have the obligations of work and school in the cities and the towns. So time is a factor in the sense of to travel home and to spend time at home for those obligations is a great strain on them. But then again, too many in the village say, we know you people are working, so you stay here for a day or so, and then we allow you to go back. So it is changing very much.
Now, with the breakdown of this traditional culture, if you will, what's replacing it? I mean, is there something... Well, secularization, I suppose, which would be something sort of filling the lives of the young people now. And the question is, how do you guard and protect the values that are good in the old ways?
So that's a very good question, and I think it's a question that we really don't have an answer to. And I suppose that is not only the young people that are affected by secularization. Maybe the older people are still more in the old ways, but mature people in their 30s and 40s, even if they're home in the village, there's no such thing really now as subsistence farming only. It's subsistence money economy. There's the pressure of cash cropping and going to market, and that sort of thing. And that takes up people's time. And everything now you need money for clothing, for store goods, for a roof for your house, etc. Takes up people's time, so there's less time for matters of faith and religion and for church. So there is, the secularization is there.
How do you, as a missionary, how do you try and fill that gap? How do you try and say, look, the old ways are breaking down, the new ways are not so good, actually, what the world has to offer in terms of secularization. Here's something else. How do you try and fill that gap, or bridge this gap, if you will? What is it that you try and keep from the old and introduce from the new, which is perhaps also good, and find that middle way, you know?
This leads us into what we say is inculturation, which is there's the gospel and the gospel values as we bring it as Catholic Church, and we seek to see how we can implant that or deepen that in the culture of the people. And that requires that we really know and understand the values of the culture so that we see where the two will meet, and that becomes it becomes an energizing way. And I remember once conducting an Inculturation workshop, and that process was happening, and it was over a 2-week period, and these people were incredibly energized. As the 2 weeks went on, I became more and more weary, and they were becoming more and more energized. And then at the end of it, they said, "We want some more."
Yeah, you said, "I can't."
So, and we need to do much more in that way. So the culture is changing, but we really need to seek to get people to really know and feel more deeply what are the values of their culture. And it's a fact, in any human culture, the values immediately relate with the gospel, because we're all made in the image and likeness of God, and the culture grows out of that. So while there's good and bad in any culture, the values of a culture can be readily recognised as linking with the gospel.
Yes. 25% of Papuans approximately 25 are Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
Is that number growing? Is the Catholic Church flourishing? What is the situation, if you will, of the Catholic Church in Papua New Guinea?
Without really knowing the statistics well, I would say it's fairly stable. Two factors there would be people leaving the church for two reasons. One, the secularization, which we've just spoken of. People have just got less time and less interest.
Other distractions, maybe.
Other distractions. And also the need to renew the church to meet the modern culture. And that's not always happening as well as it should be. And the other reason is a lot of the small churches, fundamentalist churches, are very active and very strong. And they offer... In some ways, they offer something that we're not offering. Otherwise, our people would not go.
And what is that?
I think it's a more lively prayer life. They're smaller, so they're very community based. They know each other. Whereas, unfortunately, some of our churches, we have big churches, and we still have churches full. It's hard to create that real community feeling that people that they want. Yes.
You've mentioned, and we've spoken a bit earlier about the question of the need for evangelization, the first evangelization. The Conference of Bishops has started a pastoral plan for Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands. And if I understand correctly, you are the coordinator of this pastoral plan for the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea. What is this pastoral plan, and from what does it spring? What need is this springing from?
It's part of the ongoing renewal of the church in Papua New Guinea and Solomon Islands. And I suppose historically, after the Second Vatican Council, the bishops returned, and they're all seeking ways to say, how do we implement? And then in the early 1970s, we had what we call a self-study of the church. Papua New Guinea was coming up to independence, so the church did a self-study to see, where are we? How do we serve this new nation? So that set in motion, there were some recommendations, and things moved on from there. And after that, at that stage too, the group that I work with, the Movement for a Better World, of which the Community Animation Service is the core, that was invited to Papua New Guinea, and we began work there. Then in about the year 2000, 2001, we had a process leading to our first General Assembly of the church, and that was only Papua New Guinea. The Solomon Islands were very much taken up with the difficulty of the ethnic tensions, so preoccupied there. So they chose not to enter at that stage. That General Assembly led to the National Pastoral Plan, which we evaluated last year, and then in a process that led up to our second General Assembly in November last year, and now to the Conference Pastoral Plan.
What is the need that the church sees to introduce a new pastoral plan for Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands? If I understand correctly, the idea is a drinking from the well, the thirst, the Samaritan woman. What is it that why do you say we need to look at the well again, we need to find the living water again? Where's this springing from, this need?
Going right back historically too, one of the reasons for the Second Vatican Council was this incredible changing situation of the world which goes on now, which we just spoke about, secularization and economics and politics and many things. So the church needs to be renewed, to renew its approach, its strategies, its way of pastoral work, pastoral approach in the face of that changing world. And that's an ongoing thing. You can never say we've done it, finished, we've got the program that will solve everything. And that links with the overall movement of renewal in the church. We took the drinking from the well from Pope Benedict's document Porta Fidei, where he used that biblical story as an image
of the Samaritan woman by the well.
The Samaritan woman at the well. And he was urging us to rediscover the faith, to revitalize the faith, to renew the faith. And he put that in terms of renewing our relationship, our understanding of Jesus Christ as a person. And Pope Francis has also picked that up in Evangelii Gaudium. And both have used that biblical story significantly. So we said, in line with that, let's drink from the well of our faith, which is deep. You know, we've got great traditions. It needs to be renewed. You know, a lot of the old methods and the old ways and the old strategies are just not working.
Yeah.
We would find the new way of carrying out the same mission.
Yeah.
So drink from the well, and then if with the pastoral plan, our motto is go tell everyone. So we're moving from drinking from the well and renewing and going out to evangelize.
What puts the fire in your belly? What is the spiritual, what gives you your strength to go out and to preach the gospel for 38 years in the bush of Papua New Guinea?
Sometimes I wonder. You get up in the morning and you really don't feel like starting.
Yeah.
I suppose the response of the people. And in what I'm doing now with the Movement for a Better World, we offer a real method, a real process, a real way of going about this. And people respond to that. You know, they want to be together part of something that's going to make a difference. And when we really plan our pastoral programs in an ongoing way, in an all-inclusive way, the people respond and say, that's good, now we're going somewhere, now we have something. And that just gives you energy.
Yeah. Father, we've talked about different elements, talk about the missionary work, talk about secularization, talk about some of the challenges that are facing young people in being stretched between modernity and the traditional ways. What would you see as your greatest needs today in the church in Papua New Guinea?
Two things came up very strongly in the process towards the General Assembly and as we developed the pastoral plan. One was evangelization, which quite frankly we know we have been doing, but we don't have any specific programs of how we would go about that. We need to develop that, and it needs to the new evangelization in the face of all we said about the secularization and society and the transition in culture and everything. So we really need to develop something there. The other thing that came up strongly was all the issues of justice. You know, many things, the rights of people, street kids, drugs, alcohol, you know, prostitution, domestic violence, you know, you can list them all. And while we recognise that in many of the church, in the inner services and in the parish and what people are trying to do something, but we really need to develop the proper structures and organisation and methods so this becomes an ongoing thing. So in that, and also, now the important thing is, in all of this is formation of people for that. So, like for justice, we need a Catholic population that is concerned for justice. And automatically their attitude is, if this is unjust, if this is wrong, we have to change it. And also we become evangelizers. You know, not just standing on a street corner preaching and stuff.
But so the witness
and the living, and also standing up for what's right, standing up for gospel values, and standing up for what is of value in their own culture. So that means, formation for all of that at all levels. Our seminarians, our priests need formation, our religious, our lay pastoral workers and leaders, and the whole people. So we've got to move to try and find a way to make this a focus and to find the programs, the methods, the organisation where we can make that happen. And in that too, the ecclesiology of Church today is Church of Communion. It's there in all the major documents of the Council and onwards. We have to form people in what it means to be Church of Communion, to be dialoguing people, to be listening people, to be treating people as equals, etc., etc.
Yes.
So many needs there, and in all of that, to the formation of people.
It's a lot of work.
A lot of work.
Well, one last question. After 38 years of being a missionary, if there was a young man or a young woman out there who thought, maybe I want to be a missionary, what would be your advice to that young person?
Advice would be to go for it, but have a great understanding that you are entering into somebody else's culture, and you have to learn a lot, and you have to listen. You have to dialogue with that culture and those people. So otherwise, you're never going to be really effective.
But it's been a great life.
It has, looking back, and it's probably one of the good things about talking to you about it, is it's made me realise how good it has been.
Father Roger, thanks a lot for being with us today in our program.
As I said, my pleasure and my privilege.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for having been with us today on our program, Where God Weeps. And if you'd like to know more about the work of the Catholic Church in Papua New Guinea and the Solomon Islands, I would encourage you to look at the contact information at the end of this program. And we look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.